Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. Someone slammed my front door like it owed them money. I froze with my phone in my hand. I checked the peephole and saw a woman pacing. Then she looked straight at the glass like she knew me. I'm Maya, 32, and I still hate how I hesitated. I should have called someone before touching the lock. Instead, I cracked the door with the chain on. Her eyes flicked to the gap and she smiled anyway. "Is Ethan home?" Her voice stayed calm on purpose. I blinked like that name was a language I forgot. My throat tightened and I tried to play dumb. She leaned closer and lowered her chin like a warning. I asked who she was and why she wanted him. She held up her phone and angled it at me. On the screen was Ethan's name and a heart emoji. My stomach dropped so fast I almost laughed. "I know what you want to think right here. You want to think I screamed and threw the door wide." "Nope," I tried to negotiate like an idiot. "I asked her to leave before this got ugly." She nodded once like she expected that from me. "Look, I'm not here to fight you." Her fingers tapped the glass. "I'm here because he lied to both of us." That word "both" hit me harder than any insult. I told her she had the wrong house. She scrolled and held up a photo of our porch. Same steps, same welcome mat. My blood turned cold. She knew exactly where she was standing, so why now? I tried to shut the door and the chain snapped tight. She slipped her shoe into the gap like it was nothing. "Don't do that." Her voice went sharp for 1 second. I stared at her foot and felt my face burn. "Are you his girlfriend?" I hated how small I sounded. She snorted and shook her head like I was adorable. "No." She paused and watched my reaction. "He's my husband too, if you believe his mouth." I wanted to slam the door and pretend I misheard. Instead, I asked the one question I could still manage. "What do you want from me?" My hands were useless. She swallowed and her confidence slipped just a little. "He didn't use protection." She said it like a charge. I blinked once and my brain tried to skip the meaning. Then she added, "Not once," and my chest went tight. I felt sick and suddenly the chain felt flimsy. I told her to stop talking and she held my gaze. "I'm late." Her voice cracked on that single word. She lifted her phone again and I saw a test photo. 2 lines stared back at me like they were alive. I backed up and the door chain rattled loud. She pushed the door just enough to keep control. From inside the house I heard Ethan's footsteps pause. Then his voice drifted closer and I knew he heard us. His steps stopped behind me, then resumed slower. I kept my palm on the latch like it was a shield. The woman outside didn't move, she just waited. That quiet felt louder than any shouting. "What's going on?" His voice came from the hallway. I didn't answer because my mouth went useless. I opened the door enough for him to see her face. He went rigid like he hit an invisible wall. Her eyes locked on him and she didn't blink. He tried a smile that belonged on a stranger. "Why are you here?" He lifted his hands, calm act. She tilted her phone toward him and his smile died. I watched him do the math in real time. He scanned my face like I was the threat. Then he stared at the test photo like it could vanish. His throat bobbed once and that was his first confession. He moved fast and tried to pull me aside. "Can we talk inside?" His fingers pressed my elbow. I jerked away because that touch felt dirty now. The woman's laugh cut in sharp and short. Inside, she stepped over the threshold without asking. I should have blocked her, but my body lagged behind. She walked past me like she already knew the layout. That told me something ugly. He had described my home. He followed her in and kept his voice low. "You can't be here," he muttered, eyes darting. She held up a small envelope and shook it once. "You don't get to manage this," she snapped back. I hated that my first instinct was to protect him. Not from her, but from the neighbors hearing it. "Yeah, I know how that sounds now." I still stepped between them like an idiot referee. I asked her name and she hesitated on purpose. Then she gave it and it didn't soften anything. "I tried calling first," she added, watching his reaction. He flinched and I realized he ignored her for days. He tried to steer her toward the porch again. She planted her feet and lifted her chin. "I'm done being hidden," she said, voice steady. Then she looked at me and lowered the knife slowly. I didn't know about you at first, she spoke to me. I wanted to scream, but I forced my voice flat. How long? My hands curled into fists. She glanced at him and he answered with silence. I stepped closer to him and waited. He finally shrugged like it was a weather report. Couple months, he murmured, eyes on the floor. Her face tightened and I knew that was another lie. She didn't argue. She just opened her messages. She scrolled fast, then stopped with a practice flick. There were dates, places, and his pet names for her. My skin crawled at how sweet he could sound. He lunged for her phone and missed. She yanked it back and slapped his hand away. Don't, she warned, and he actually listened. That's when I realized he feared her more than me. I held out my hand toward him, no words. He stared at my palm like it was a trap. I wiggled my fingers once, come on. He sighed and dropped his own phone into my hand. My thumb hovered over the screen and I froze. You know that feeling when reality turns thick. I wanted proof, but I also wanted ignorance. I unlocked it anyway and my heart punched hard. There was a thread with her name and a baby emoji. There were photos I won't describe because you get it. There were voice notes labeled for later like a joke. My vision tunneled when I saw he saved them. He tried to talk fast, too fast to be honest. It meant nothing, he pushed out, hands shaking. I looked at his face and laughed once, harsh sound. Even he knew that line was trash. The woman pointed at the envelope again. I have a lab report, she said, voice thin now. He begged me to wait, she added, staring at him. He mouthed stop at her like she was a child. I leaned in and spoke low so he had to hear. Did you use condoms with her? I asked, slow and clear. He didn't answer me, he answered the selling. I didn't think, he started, then choked on the rest. I felt heat rise up my neck and into my ears. I wanted to hit him, I wanted to collapse. Instead, I asked the worst question because I had to. Did you come home to me right after her? He blinked hard and looked away. That was it, that was my answer. The woman's shoulders sank like she hated herself too. Then she whispered, I'm not the only one, and I went cold. I grabbed my keys and walked out before I lost control. He followed me into the driveway, palms open like a saint. Don't leave like this, his voice chased my back. I kept walking anyway because I knew I might turn violent. The woman stayed near the entry like she was guarding it. She looked at him, then at me, then made a choice. Get in your car, she told me, tone flat. I hated that I listened, like she had earned authority. He stepped between us and tried to lower the temperature. Both of you, please, he lifted a finger like a referee. I pushed past him shoulder first, no apology. He didn't stop me because he knew he couldn't. I sat behind the wheel and stared at my shaking hands. You ever feel your body betray you mid-crisis? I could drive, but I couldn't breathe right. Then my brain finally landed on one word: tests. I drove to urgent care like the road owed me answers. At the desk, I blurted everything in the ugliest order. I need an STD panel today, my voice cracked on panel. The receptionist blinked, then slid me forms like a lifeline. I filled them out with a pen that kept slipping. I wrote his name once, then crossed it out hard. I wrote mine again and my hand steadied. That small control felt pathetic, and I clung to it anyway. A nurse called me back and I stood too fast. My knees wobbled and I pretended they didn't. She asked what brought me in and I froze. Then I heard myself say, my husband put me at risk. She didn't flinch, which almost made me cry. She listed tests and timelines, short and clinical. I nodded like I understood, but my mind kept spiraling. Because what else did he bring home besides lies? While I waited, my screen kept buzzing in my lap. It was him, then him again, then him again. I didn't answer because every ring felt like pressure. Then a new number popped up and my stomach tightened. Check your email, it was the woman from earlier. No greeting, no softness, just a task. I opened it and saw a screenshot thread attached. There were names I didn't recognize, and one was labeled Jim. I stared at that label like it was a punch. He never went to the gym, not once. He used that word like a mask, a clean excuse. So how many clean excuses did he keep ready? I walked out with a stack of instructions and a numb face. They told me when results could arrive and what to watch. I heard the words, but they floated past me. Because my next thought was sharper, where is he right now? I drove home and saw his car still parked outside. That made my vision flare with anger fast and hot. He was inside my house like nothing changed. I marched in and found him sitting, head in his hands, waiting. He stood when he saw me, too eager, too performative. I was worried, his eyes searched my face for a crack. I dropped the clinic paperwork on the counter hard. You should be terrified, I told him, and he finally looked it. He reached for the papers and I slapped his hand away. Don't touch my stuff, my voice sounded colder than I felt. He swallowed and tried another angle, softer. This time, let's talk, he whispered, and that word made me want to scream. I asked one question, slow like reading charges. How many? I didn't blink because blinking felt weak. He stared at the floor like it held the answer. Then he muttered, I don't know, and I saw red. I laughed and it came out wrong and jagged. You don't know, I stepped closer, close enough to shake. He backed up and that retreat told me everything. Because innocent people don't retreat, they fight for clarity. His mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. I stopped counting, the words slipped out like an accident. I stood there like my brain had been unplugged. Then my body reacted before my mind could catch up. I grabbed a bag from the closet and threw it at him. It hit his chest and dropped to the floor, useless. Pack, I said, and my voice didn't tremble this time. He stared at the bag like it was a verdict, not a suggestion. He tried to argue, but his words tripped over each other. I can fix this, he reached for me then stopped himself. I pointed toward the door and didn't lower my arm. Go, I told him and waited to see if he'd refuse. He moved at last, slow and resentful like I was cruel. That almost made me doubt myself for half a second. Then my screen buzzed again with that unknown number. A text flashed up, he told me you'd stay quiet, and I went still. I typed back one word, who. My thumb hovered like it was waiting for permission. The reply came fast, like they were watching my screen. Ask him about the hotel points, it read. I walked into the bedroom and yanked open the closet. He was stuffing clothes into the bag like he was late. He looked up and tried that wounded face again. My phone lit his cheek with the message and he flinched. Hotel points, I held the screen inches from his eyes. He swallowed and shrugged like he didn't hear me. I pushed harder because I was done being polite. His jaw clenched and that tiny crack told me everything. I grabbed his wallet off the dresser and flipped it open. A loyalty card slid out, different logo than our usual places. He reached for it and I snapped it back. His hands froze midair like even he knew how bad it looked. I pulled up the app and logged in with his saved password. Yeah, I know, privacy is sacred until your life is on fire. A list popped up with stays I never knew about. The dates lined up with his overtime like a cruel joke. He stepped closer, voice soft like a trap. That's old, he tapped the screen like it was harmless. I scrolled again and the last stay was last week. He went quiet because silence was safer than lying. I walked past him and opened the front door wide. Get out, I pointed at the driveway like I owned it. He stared at me like I was a different species. Then his phone buzzed and his face changed again. He checked the screen and turned it away too fast. I moved in and he blocked me with his shoulder. Who's texting you? My voice came out thin and sharp. He kept the screen hidden and that made me colder. I grabbed his wrist and he jerked back hard. I hate that part, I do. I wasn't proud, but I also wasn't gentle anymore. His phone slipped and hit the floor with a dull slap. The screen stayed on. A message preview showed a name I had never seen. It read, she knows about us, what do I do? My stomach turned because it sounded scared and young. He lunged for it and I planted my foot on the tile. Don't, one word, and he actually paused. I picked up the phone and backed toward the kitchen. He followed, hands twitching like he might grab me anyway. You want it back? I held it higher out of reach. Tell me the truth, my voice shook but I didn't stop. He exhaled through his nose like I was exhausting him. Then he said it was a mistake and I almost laughed again. A mistake has one person and one bad night. This had apps, points, and scared texts at midnight. I opened the thread and my chest tightened hard. There were selfies, a pet name, and a calendar invite. He tried to take the phone and I stepped away. You're going to break it, his tone turned accusatory. I stared at him and realized he cared more about the device. That thought hit me like a slap and I saw him clearer. My phone chimed again with that unknown number. Look at his laptop, the text ordered. Hidden folder, search the word schedule. I didn't like being commanded, but I did it anyway. I went to his office and flipped the laptop open. My hands moved like they belonged to someone braver. I typed the word and held my breath. A document popped up with names, times, and addresses. It wasn't romantic. It was logistics, like he ran a side business. He had color-coded notes about who liked what excuses. Reading it made me feel stupid in a whole new way. He appeared behind me and grabbed the chair back. Stop, his voice dropped low, dangerous edge showing. I turned and met his eyes and I didn't look away. He hesitated because he wasn't sure who I was anymore. You planned this, I tapped the screen with one finger. This wasn't a slip, my throat felt tight but steady. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. That pause was the loudest confession he gave me. My phone rang and the clinic number flashed. My heart kicked hard like it wanted to escape. I answered and tried to sound normal like a clown. The nurse's tone stayed calm and my world narrowed to her words. Some results were pending, some were ready. She gave me a few negatives, like crumbs tossed to a starving dog. Then she added a "we need to retest," and my legs went weak. I slid down to the floor and watched his shoes near my face. He crouched like he could fix it with proximity. Are you okay? His hand hovered near my shoulder. I slapped it away without even looking up. He drew back and I saw fear for the first time, real fear. I stood up and wiped my palms on my jeans. You're leaving, my voice sounded flat, almost bored. He tried to argue, but I raised the laptop like a weapon. Or I send this to everyone you care about, I warned. He went pale and nodded once. He grabbed the bag and walked toward the entry. At the door he turned, eyes wet like he wanted mercy. Please, he whispered, and I felt nothing useful. The knock came again, fast and urgent. Not a polite tap, not a neighbor's rhythm. I opened the door and saw the first woman standing there. She held that envelope in a tiny knit hat and my throat closed. The knit hat dangled from her fingers like a threat. She held the envelope up, then pressed it to her chest. Behind me, his bag scraped the floor as he stopped. The three of us stood there, breathing the same air. Open it, she pushed the envelope toward my hands. I didn't take it because I didn't trust my shaking grip. She ripped it herself and slid out a lab printout. His eyes latched onto it like a trapped animal. He tried to step outside and block my view. I leaned left because I was done being guided. The paper showed his full name in black text. Not a rumor, not a guess, his name. She didn't want to come alone, he blurted, voice thin. That line made my head tilt because it was so stupid. Come alone, like this was a dentist appointment. My nails dug into my palm and I stayed quiet. She looked at him like she could burn through skin. You told me you were separated, her words came out clipped. He opened his mouth, then stopped himself fast. That stop was the truth and it landed heavy. I asked her, what do you want right now? I kept my tone controlled, which shocked even me. She lifted the knit hat and held it closer. I want him to stop pretending, she snapped. He raised both hands like surrender would erase consequences. I can explain, his voice tried to sound steady. I laughed once, then stopped because it hurt my throat. Don't, I warned, and he flinched. She stepped inside without waiting for permission. I moved with her because I refused to be cornered again. He stayed at the threshold like he wanted two exits. That little choice told me he was planning a run. I'm not the only one, she said, staring at him. I already knew that part, but hearing it felt different. My chest tightened, then went strangely calm. It was like my brain flipped a safety switch. She pulled up her screen and turned it toward me. There was a group chat title with his name in it. 3 women, one of them was the number from earlier. I felt my pulse thump in my ears. He tried to grab her phone, then checked himself. That self-control wasn't respect, it was survival. I pointed at the screen and looked at him. Tell me who else, I said, voice flat. He swallowed and rubbed his mouth like he could wipe guilt off. One was before we married, he mumbled, eyes sliding away. He rushed the words, hoping speed would make them lighter. Then he added 2 were recent and my stomach rolled. The woman's shoulders sagged like she hated the answer too. I thought I was special, she gave a bitter half laugh. I wanted to comfort her, which made me furious at myself. Why was I comforting anyone while my life burned? A car door shut outside, sharp sound too close. All three of us turned at once like puppets. A younger woman walked up the path, phone clenched tight. She stopped when she saw me and kept coming anyway. You're her, she pointed at me without lifting her arm. I nodded because lying would be pointless now. She looked past me and her face twisted. You promised me no wife, she spat at him. He stepped forward, palms out, mouth already forming excuses. She cut him off with a raised hand and a short shake. Then she looked at the first woman and went pale. Wait, she whispered, are you pregnant too? The first woman's jaw tightened, then she nodded once. The younger one's eyes widened like she might bolt. I heard myself ask, how many are there? No one answered fast enough. He spoke into the silence like he had rehearsed it. Not that many, his voice broke on many. That answer was useless and he knew it. I stepped closer until he had to look at me. Get your phone, I pointed at his pocket. Call your parents, the words tasted strange but necessary. He stared like I was insane, then saw I meant it. His thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. Why? His voice tried to bargain for dignity. So you can't rewrite this later, I said, slow and clear. He glanced at the two women, then at the door. He dialed and I watched his face drain. His mother answered on speaker, bright and cheerful. He tried to speak, failed, tried again. I messed up, his voice cracked like cheap glass. I stared at the ceiling while she asked, what did you do? He blurted it out in pieces, messy and rushed. Cheating, no protection, pregnant more than one. There was a long pause, then a sharp inhale. I felt the shame hit the room like a wave. The younger woman shifted her weight and looked at me again. I'm not pregnant, her voice sounded defensive, almost proud. Then she added, but I got tested today and my throat tightened. How many clinics would see his damage this week? The first woman lifted the envelope again and held it out. This is the paternity test order, her voice steadied. He wanted it done fast, she glanced at me apologetic. That apology made something inside me snap into focus. I took the paper this time and scanned the details. His name, her name, an appointment time, a location. I held it up so he could see I had it. You're going, I said, and he nodded too quickly. He tried to step toward me, eyes wet, voice softening. I still love you, he reached out like I was familiar. I backed away because love didn't feel like this. Stop using that word, I told him, and he recoiled. I turned to both women and kept my voice low. I'm not your enemy, the sentence surprised me as it left. They watched me like they expected rage, not strategy. I nodded toward the driveway, let's do this outside. We walked out together, three strangers linked by one liar. He followed, slower now because he'd lost control. The younger woman kept scanning the street like she feared witnesses. The first woman kept one hand over her stomach. I faced him in the open where he couldn't corner me. You're moving out tonight, I said, no wobble in it. He started to protest, then saw my expression and stopped. That silence felt like a door locking. He looked at the first woman, then at the younger one. His eyes flicked back to me, pleading for a shortcut. There wasn't one, not anymore. I watched him realize he couldn't charm his way out. Who are you living with? I asked him, steady voice. He opened his mouth, then shut it, then tried again. My friend, he picked a vague answer like it could protect him. I nodded once because I already knew I'd verify it. The first woman stepped closer to him, jaw set. You promised you'd leave her, her words cut clean. He didn't deny it because denial would be pointless now. He just whispered, I tried, and it sounded pathetic. I turned to her and kept my gaze firm. If he says that again, don't believe it. My voice came out calm, which scared me a little. She stared at me like she didn't know what to do. The younger woman lifted her phone and showed me a message. A screenshot of him typing, she won't kick me out. My face went hot and I wanted to scream. Instead, I nodded and saved it to my own phone. He saw me do it and his eyes widened. You're recording me now, his tone tried to shame me. I stepped closer, voice low. I'm protecting myself, I said, and he backed up. I walked back to the door and held it open. Get your things, 3 words, no softness. He stood there like he might refuse out of spite. Then he saw both women watching and he moved. He carried the bag to his car without looking at me. His mother's voice still echoed from that call, angry and stunned. The first woman watched him like she was measuring his spine. The younger one kept biting her lip like it might bleed. He opened the driver door, then paused and turned. His mouth formed my name like it was a spell. I didn't answer because answering felt like permission. He stared at me anyway, waiting for mercy. I raised the paternity paper and tore it in half. Not to stop it, just to prove I was done obeying. His eyes flashed with panic and he took a step forward. Then I pointed to his car and didn't blink. He got in. The engine started. The tires rolled, slow at first, then faster. I watched him disappear down the street and felt nothing soften.